Hey there, Jeff here. Just wanted to remind everybody that this Saturday, November 7th, is the Extra Life Game Day charity stream. You can join us at twitch.tv/FriendQuestLive as we play video games to help raise money for our local Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We will be live all day starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to stop by and say hi and maybe donate a few bucks to a good cause. Again, that's 10 a.m. Eastern Time on November 7th at twitch.tv/FriendQuestLive. We hope to see you there. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. Jeff.
Yep.
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I'm very full. I had 2 servings of dinner and 2 cookies, and I got some big news.
What's that?
My sister just had a baby.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations to your sister.
Yeah. So I have 2. Well, so I have 2 sisters. One of them has 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And now the other one has her first kid.
Okay.
And I was never expecting that sister to have kids.
Sure.
She has a dog, and she was very much a dog person. Like I was like, okay, she's probably settled into having a dog.
Sure.
And that was gonna be it. But no, she went ahead and had a kid. So
yeah.
That's it's exciting. It's a cute kid.
Well, cool. I guess is this your first niece or nephew?
No, this will be my third. That'll be my third niece.
Okay. Oh yeah, you've
niece.
Probably shared a story about a niece at some point.
Right. Yeah. I got the one sister with two girls, and then now another sister with a girl. So I'm just, surrounded by girls, but that's never been a problem for me. So.
Well, look at me. Look at
wow,
Jeff over here.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like that. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. How you doing?
Well, so I'm doing all right. I also have an announcement, and this is not necessarily a happy announcement.
Yeah.
So I recently found out that this coming January 2021, my work is going to be changing our schedules. Mm-hmm. There's been rumor of this for quite some time, basically ever since we started at this location, which was like almost 3 years ago now. There's been rumors that they were going to switch to a different schedule. Right now, we're working 4 10-hour shifts a week, and there's been talk of them switching to 5 8-hour shifts a week. Which, I mean, I'm sure people at home are like, but Gabe, that's like everybody has that type of... Well, not me, darn it. I had a much awesomer schedule. But anyway, so it became official. We are going to be making that change in January. And so I'm also going to be working different days. Instead of working Wednesday through Saturday, which I work now, it's going to be Monday through Friday. Now... If it was just that itself wouldn't really be a huge problem. I mean, it is a change, but I've come around on most of the actual changes. It's not really, we'll still be able to get the podcast out at the same time every week. I'll have more time on the days that I do work, which is a good thing. However, there is similar rumor that there will be, a healthy amount of mandatory overtime. And if that's the case, then that means that I will most likely only have 1 day off every week for the foreseeable future, until the mandatory overtime ends, because it's going to be a lot of mandatory overtime if the rumors are to be believed. Mm-hmm. So if that is the case, that is definitely going to affect the podcast somehow, because your work schedule does not at all line up with the schedule I'm going to have. So the only days that we would be able to record is the probably 1 day off a week that I have, which is fine. The podcast is still going to go on pretty much no matter what we do. However, my main concern is our Patreon games, because once a month we have a Roll20 game. And if every week I only have 1 day off from work, it's going to make that more difficult. Doesn't mean that we can't do it, but it is definitely going to be harder
Yeah.
it's definitely going to really throw a wrench in how we currently do things.
Right. Yeah. We might need to tweak some things and rethink a couple things just to kind of to get everything in line with the new schedule.
Right. So I guess I just wanted to mention this on the show because I want to warn all of our listeners there may be some changes in January, particularly changes to the Patreon, possibly. I'm not sure yet. We'll let you know as we get more information, but keep your eyes open. We may have to make some changes to how we do things.
Yeah, but we'll still be recording the podcast either way. So.
At the very least, the podcast shouldn't be affected in any meaningful way. It should continue on the way that it has been. We'll see about anything beyond just the normal main feed.
Yep.
So thank you for your patience, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jeff, you want to go ahead and jump into this episode?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Hang on. I'll probably cut this part out. Jeff, I need to ask you a favor.
Yeah, sure.
I forgot my phone somewhere. Can you go get it for me?
Yeah. Where's it at?
It's over in the Dragon's Hoard. So today's magic item was submitted by Joe S. via Discord. And the item today is the Ring of Friendship.
Ooh.
Let's talk about something we can all relate to. Bards, have you ever had that super fan that followed you from town to town, wouldn't leave you alone? Paladins, have you ever had that new convert that wanted to take things to the next level? Anyone out there have a person who decided that you were the only one for them, and if they couldn't have you, nobody could?
Uh-oh.
Yes? I have the solution. I know the normal solutions work. You could talk to the Assassin's Guild and have them just fade into memory. You could hire some mercenaries to take Johnny Fanboy out back and beat him into submission, but really, aren't we better than this? What if I told you there was a bloodshed-free way to deal with these unwanted and sometimes aggressive people? Well, there is. Purchase one of my Rings of Friendship. How it works is proprietary magic. This magic changes the need for possessing you and the lust for you into healthy and good-natured friendship. That's right, you purchase my ring, you read the scroll provided and put your name and the person's name in the places provided, and then all you have to do is give them the ring and have them slip it on. It's that simple. This ring is a golden band that looks like an ivy with a small flower bud on it. When they slip it on their finger, they will lose all memory of their obsession and destructive attention. Instead, they will be a friend to you as long as they wear this ring. When it's put on, it animates, releasing the spell. The delicate petals open and bloom, creating an ornament they will cherish and show their friends for ages to come. Now I know there are people out there who would use this power to control other people, but we've worked in a safeguard. You cannot make a person who is in a loving relationship become just a friend to their spouse, be they highborn nobles like a king and queen to the rest of us who lovingly run a farm together, because the scroll that activates this ring only lets you write your name in the spot where you tell the ring bearer who to be friends with. As for you unsavory types who would try to trick people into writing their own name in the blank, there's no help for you, and we are not responsible for your actions by order of the local lord. So, if you want to rid yourself of the crazy mistress or an unwanted aggressive suitor, friend zone them with the Ring of Friendship. Remove curse required for removal and will be resisted by the wearer as strongly as they would resist giving up their original obsession. So there you go. That's the Ring of Friendship. That was all written by Joe S. That was all part of the submission. I was not responsible for any of that. I just figured it would work a little better as a commercial rather than just a normal Dragon's Word. So the basic idea of this is you put your name and you put someone else's name on this scroll, you give them this ring, and then it makes them charmed, I guess. There aren't really much in the way of mechanics, but it makes them charmed, but not so it can like bring down an obsession to it. It can downgrade an obsession down to a charm, I guess.
Right.
I will say I've never really played in a game where this was would have been useful. However, I kind of want to. I would like to play in a game where a person... First off, I would love to play a character that had fans. You know, I know I've talked about like my character Ichi was world famous or whatever, but like there was maybe only one or two times where like that really had implications in the story. We had he had a follower, he had a henchman actually that offered to come and become an adventurer by traveling with us, and that was cool. And then there was a time where he was specifically assassinated because he was famous. But aside from that, there wasn't really any times when like he wasn't like swamped by fans or anything like that.
Right.
It would be cool to play in a game where that was a hazard of becoming a famous adventurer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you did have to deal with the repercussions of something like that, of a crazed fan, someone who took their obsession too far, that could be an interesting idea for a more of like an intrigue or role-playing based campaign.
Right, yeah. The PC wakes up with a little bit less hair than they did before. They had the night before.
Oh man, but then in D&D there's magic that can like clone someone, so maybe they've been slowly stealing your hair over time, and then eventually they just make an inert clone of you.
Oh my goodness, it's like a you could do a spin on the big bad evil guy, where it's it's like a really obsessed fan who goes through the process of making themselves a lich and then is trying to also make you a lich so that you can live together forever.
Oh my goodness, that's pretty good.
Or just like I don't know, I was gonna say like a really obsessed mind flayer that, well, I mean, it's like, well, they always want to eat your brain anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there isn't really much else in the way of mechanics. It is a neat idea for a thing. I just think it's an idea for a campaign situation that I don't think most people encounter. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that they can't. If you ever do want to put something like that in your game, this could be a way to go about that. I like how it is a version of mind control meant to make someone less obsessed with you.
Yeah.
That I like that. So
yeah, it's a ring when you want somebody to like you but not like you.
Right. Yeah. So I don't really have much else to say about this. It's like I said from Joe S. It's an interesting item, and I liked the pitch that he wrote in there. So
yeah, it was really good.
So yeah, big thank you to Joe S. for submitting that. Once again, that was submitted via Discord, and that was the Ring of Friendship. So that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard today. Jeff, if anybody else wanted to be like Joe S. and submit magic items for the Dragon's Hoard, or if they want to submit questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre or retirement village, how would they get those to us?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com or join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
Yes, that is correct. And before we go any further, we have a giveaway to give away today.
Mm-hmm.
So as usual, we're giving away a copy of Unearthed Tips and Tricks Volume 2, courtesy of Crit Academy. Crit Academy is a great podcast where every episode they have a character concept, an encounter concept, a monster variant, a magic item, a player tip, a DM tip. And this is a collection of 25 of those. It is the second such volume. And it's tons and tons of great stuff for players, for DMs, for anybody who wants to learn more about the game, anybody who wants ideas for stuff to do in their game. There's some great stuff in there. It's a great supplement. So, Jeff, who is our winner of this great supplement today?
Today's winner is Sean M.
Whoa, winner. Gobble. Yes, that is correct. Congratulations, Sean M. You should be getting that in your email pretty soon. Be sure to leave Crit Academy a review. The more reviews they get, the more attention they get, the more people will see their product, and the more they can work on creating better things in the future. So I think this is a great supplement. Thank you to Crit Academy for helping give these out to our listeners. Good job, Sean M. If anybody else wanted to be like Sean M., Jeff, and they wanted to enter this drawing to win in a future episode, how would they enter that?
They can enter by sending us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Unearthed Tips and Tricks Volume 2 in the subject line.
That is correct. And so unfortunately, we are no longer giving away copies of Strahd's Manual of Shadow, but I do want to give a huge thank you to Seawood Scribe for doing that for us. I think that was really, really cool. Also, I will say that he got in touch with me and he wanted me to mention, if I could, that he's gotten some feedback about some of the stuff that's in that book, and there is one subclass in there that apparently is way too powerful. It's the Moonbound Werewolf subclass, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He's going to be working on some errata. So the lesson here is take that immediately, everybody. You want to get in on that before it's gone.
Right. Yep. You want to get the original version.
So just like a warning, if anybody was using this in their game and then like one of their players takes this and was like, oh, they're really, I guess it's like Barbarian's Rage, but way better or something. So
my original read of it, I was sort of my eyebrows raised a bit when I was reading it, but I still really liked all the flavor and everything. So I was impressed with like the whole book. It was good.
Sure. But yeah, it's so cool that we were able to give out some free copies of that. So again, huge thank you. And of course, for anybody who didn't win, it's still available on DM's Guild. You can go buy it anytime you want. So I do highly recommend that. And then after that, I want to thank all of our wonderful patrons for helping make the show happen. We have a Patreon campaign at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. We've got a few different tiers with various rewards on there. As I said earlier, some of those, particularly the top tier, might undergo some changes in the next couple months. We'll keep you updated on that. But as of right now, on the lowest tier, we've got outtakes. We've got fantasy fiction I've written. On the next tier up, we've got a monthly bonus podcast. And also on the top tier, as of right now, we have a monthly Roll20 game. We recently did a game of Dawn of Worlds to create a campaign setting for that, and it went super, super well. So I'm very excited about that campaign when we're able to get it going, assuming, we are able to keep that tier up and everything. So we've just got a bunch of cool stuff on there. So if you want to help out the show and get some cool stuff in return, go check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. A huge thank you, of course, goes out to everybody who has continued to donate to us. We know times are tough and they're probably going to get tougher for a little while longer, at least. So, we would understand if anybody had to cancel, but thank you to everybody who has not. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And then one more thing, check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy, critacademy.com. We already mentioned them. Justin, Ian, and Austin make new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Also check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They are an actual play podcast. And D&D Character Lab, Garen and Dan made characters every week and pitted them against each other to debate whose characters were better. Enough of all that. Let's get into some questions, Jeff.
Okay, our first question comes from Dr. Taco 86 on Discord, and they ask, when teaching D&D to somebody with no gaming experience whatsoever, should one prepare sample characters beforehand?
Yeah. So I have a lot of experience with this because I've run a lot of games at my local library specifically to teach people how to play D&D. And the majority of the people that we've had, I would say, have had no gaming experience whatsoever. Some of them have played other games, but not D&D. So we've gotten a pretty good variety. And I definitely have a very strong opinion on this, but what do you think, Jeff?
I'd say, yeah, if it was no gaming experience whatsoever, it'd be probably a really good idea to have like a few like sample characters on hand, maybe like a few like famous archetypes, that something they can get behind, like, have something like based off of like a Batman or Superman, kind of not necessarily like exactly like them, but like you can easily flavor a paladin type character to be like a Superman or something, or like a ranger or rogue being like a Batman type character. So something that is like a type of character that is well known and iconic enough that anybody can wrap their head around it.
Sure.
And then you basically tell them, okay, here's this character. This is what it can do, but you can do anything you want with it.
Yeah.
You can tell them to like flip that on its head if you want it. You want it to, and that's kind of where like the magic of D&D kind of comes in. Is like, wait, I can do whatever. I can just I don't have to like, I can be Superman, like I can be the Superman guy, but I don't have to like be good all the time. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that it is going to depend on a couple of things. There are some factors you should take into account. One being the amount of time you have. If you are running on a tight schedule, which my library games were, then absolutely you should make characters ahead of time, because otherwise you will spend the entire session, possibly multiple sessions, just making characters. Because making characters, even in 5th edition D&D, it still takes a long time. Maybe it'll take half an hour if everybody, per person, I guess. And that can be way more time than you want to spend. If you're playing a game like Pathfinder, that's going to take even longer. If you're playing like a really if you're not playing D&D, if it is like a rules light system or something, of course, I guess use your best judgment. But the amount of time is a big part. Another part is the type of game. If you're going to be running a combat heavy game, if the first session is just going to be a couple combats, then that I would say that similarly, it's going to take a long time, because you do need to you would otherwise need to make sure that the players know all of their options. And that's really what it comes down to, is when making a character, you have a ton of options. For somebody who is very familiar with the game, or even just familiar with other types of games, other video games or whatever, it can be hard to grasp all of the options you have. You might have, if you're new to the game, you might have no idea what significance any of this stuff is going to have. Yeah. I remember when I first learned to play D&D, the first time I ever played D&D 3rd edition, it was a short little session that we played when we were on this school trip in Chicago. And one of the guy that was teaching us how to play, he was trying to explain to us like how to allocate our ability scores, which is a pretty big thing when you're making a character in D&D. So you want to know, okay, what's your strength? What's your constitution? What's your intelligence? And he was like trying to explain the difference between putting a high score in intelligence and the high score in wisdom. And he did a very poor job of it. He basically said, well, do you want your search to be higher or your spot to be higher? So like the difference between, in 5th edition, the difference between investigate and perception. And like, there's so much more to it than that, but he was probably trying to simplify it so that it wouldn't be, a ton of information to take in. So if you're a new player, especially if you've never played any sort of role-playing game whatsoever, and you're given a list of like, okay, pick one of these 12 races or whatever. Pick one of these, 10, I don't even remember how many races or classes there are. Pick one of these like 10 classes. Yeah. If you've played a lot of video games, it's easy to be like, okay, well, I generally like sitting in the back and shooting a bow and arrow. Okay, ranger sounds good. Or, maybe I like a little bit more magic to it. Oh, warlock. There you go. You're perfect. But let's say you're not going to be running a combat heavy campaign. Those are less important of decisions to make. You might want to base your decision on something else. If it's going to be, the first session is going to be, I really want to teach the players how role-playing, actually playing as your character and having like discussions in character and such. If that's what your focus is going to be, you might want to focus instead on, okay, look at these different backgrounds. You could be a sailor. You could be a noble. You could be an urchin that lived on the street, and then work backward from there. But even still, it's still a lot of things, a lot of lists to choose from. And I feel like because someone is with no gaming experience is likely to come in with no or very few presuppositions about these sort of things, I find it better to make characters ahead of time, maybe not a ton of characters, because you don't want to be right back where you started. You don't want to be like, okay, pick from these 15 characters I made,
Right, yeah.
If you can make, maybe 4 or 5 characters that each one you can give a 1-sentence pitch for what this character is all about, and then tailor that description to what type of game you're going to be running. If it's going to be combat, be like, okay, this guy uses a bow and can hide behind stuff and does a lot of damage when enemies don't see him. Or this character, she casts magic spells. She can, blow stuff up. She's really good at hitting like a whole bunch of enemies at once. Focus on that. If you're going to be running like a more of a role-playing based thing, say like, okay, this character is a half-elf. He's kind of like, stuck between 2 worlds, and he's got a lot of important opinions on stuff or whatever, and so on and so on. So if you can give a 1-sentence pitch for each of these characters, that's going to stick in their minds way better than, okay, well, you can choose to use this melee weapon or this other melee weapon. This one has slightly higher base damage, but requires both hands, so you can't use a shield in, the last thing you want to do when you're trying to get someone excited about this game is to be like, okay, memorize this list of factors. Memorize all of this data. You don't want to do that. You don't want to make people have to like worry about stuff. And if you've already made characters, then after one session, if somebody says, I didn't really like that character, I didn't really like sitting in the back and shooting a bow, I really liked it when the enemy got right in my face and I had to like hit him with a stick, then okay, it's real easy to be like, all right, next time we'll make you a character together and you can make a character that's better at hitting people with a stick. Once they're a little bit more familiar with the mechanics, then you can focus on, okay, next time we'll make characters or even just tweak the character you already had,
Sure, yeah.
So often when I play a video game and character creation is right at the beginning, I basically just pick stuff, whatever just in an instant sounds good. And then once I know how any of this stuff is going to factor in, then I go back and I start over and I do, I try to put that stuff into good use.
Yeah, that's why it's hard for me to like go into a game blind because I usually want to know not necessarily like what's the best character or class or whatever to make. Like I don't need to know the meta right away, but it's like I want to know what sounds the most fun to me.
Yeah.
Going into it, so I'm not like wasting too much time on the character creation and stuff. Mm-hmm. Although that I say that, but it usually takes me a really long time.
Yeah, because like I understand the reasoning behind this question. It's a ton of fun to make characters, and especially if you're going to be running a long-term campaign, you really want the character to have as much input from the player as possible. You don't want the player to feel like, well, I'm just doing this thing somebody else told me to do.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to, in the session, explain to them, okay, you're a wizard, pick from this list of 20 cantrips, these things that are going to be with you forever. Pick 3 of them or whatever. Then you're going to have to go down the list and be like, okay, well, here's what this one does. Here's what this one does. I think you should just pick this. Pick Prestidigitation because it's really fun. Pick Flame Bolt because it's a good damage dealing spell. Somebody's already going to be telling you, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. So just cut out all of the time of the first session. Make a character ahead of time that doesn't force the player to memorize a bunch of stuff. And then once they know what they liked and what they didn't like, then you can sit down with them and make a new character. That's what we did at our library games. I made characters ahead of time because I knew we wouldn't have time to make characters at the session. Also, I didn't know who was going to be showing up more than once, so why make somebody make a character and then they never show up again? But once a few of the people started showing up routinely, started showing up every time, then I sat down with them one month and we worked out. I told them what their options were. They chose which race they wanted. They chose which class they wanted, and so on. I still had to do some of the, I recommend this for this reason. I recommend this for this reason. But as much as possible, I did try to put it in their hands, and it was much better several months down the line than it would have been right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's not as good to show a new player everything they can do all at once. It's better to just get them going, and then if they're interested in continuing playing, they'll ask, okay, what else can I do? They'll ask for more info if they're interested.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better to not completely flood them with all that info up front anyway. So yeah, have a few samples, have sample characters, and just kind of go from there.
And of course, you can ask the players.
That's true.
When this was asked in the Discord, that's basically what everybody's response was like, ask the players. And yeah, I get that. But in general, if you... Because, okay, here's another thing. I doubt someone who's never played any sort of role-playing game before, I doubt they're going to know how big of an investment it is to make a character. They might say, yeah, let's make characters. And then 3 hours into the session, they're like, wiping the sweat off their forehead, and they're like, can we do something else? This is just too much. I don't know. So I think that it's not a bad idea to just assume you will have a bunch of pre-made characters, maybe with some details they can fill in. Don't necessarily pick all the role-playing parts, but like
Sure.
the mechanics, the stuff that's boring, choosing stuff from a list. Have some ideas. If you do want to ask them ahead of time and say like, hey, do you want to just pick a character or do you want to make a character yourself? Just be sure to illustrate to them that like, we will probably spend the whole session making characters if that's what you want to do. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and good luck to you. It's always great to get new people into the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The more the better.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question comes from Dustin on Discord, and he asks, should spells like comprehend languages and identify always work, even when dealing with ancient or alien languages in Magic?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. To an extent, I feel like this is kind of similar to there's spells like remove disease or remove curse. You put in something that you want as a DM. You put in something that you want to be an obstacle, such as a curse or a language nobody understands or whatever. And then maybe you have some elaborate side quest planned for the party to circumvent this obstacle. And then you realize halfway through the session, oh, shoot, they have like a first or second level spell that just gets right past this.
Yeah.
What are some things that you as the DM should do? Is it okay for you to be like, oh, it doesn't work?
Yeah. Because, there are some cool, clever, more mundane, puzzles and things like that can be solved with a first or second level spell. So, yeah. See, this one's kind of tricky because it's like they're spending a resource.
Yeah.
And they're spending a resource that, specifically says in the book it lets you comprehend all languages.
Sure.
It's right there in the rules. You can't. There's not really too much wiggle room as far as the rules is written.
Yeah, there's a little bit which I'll get to in a minute.
So yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, all right, I'm going to use comprehend languages on this script that I can't normally read. What does it say, DM? And you go, well, you cast a spell and you're still not quite sure what it says, and it's like, well, what the heck?
Yeah,
but at the same time, I guess it depends on the player, but I feel like that could go either way. It could be like, well, what the heck? That's not fair. Or it could be like, wow, this must be really some really crazy language. This must be from somewhere way out of here.
Yeah. I would say that in my experience, at least, the difference between those two is whether it feels like it is, how to describe this? I was going to say whether it feels like it was intentional or not, whether it feels like a cop-out or not.
Right, yeah.
If the DM just says, oh, it doesn't work, that feels like a cop-out. If, however, the DM, gets a strange look on their face and they're like, that's really strange. For some reason, it doesn't work. If there is an implication that there is some additional obstacle that is not known to the player. If you could clear away this other obstacle, that would work. But for some reason, it's not.
Yeah.
That is most likely going to be intriguing rather than just feel like a cop-out. But,
right.
Yeah, if they're just like, no, it doesn't work. The spell just isn't able to do it. Okay, well, kind of feels like cop-out, I guess.
Right, I don't know. I was thinking it could translate it with comprehend languages. It could translate it and you could basically just start speaking gibberish to them.
I suppose. I mean, something can be coded,
Yeah.
Even and that comprehend languages doesn't. In fact, the spell specifically says you understand the literal meaning of any spoken language you hear or written language that you can touch. So, there's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation that is a very, very well-known episode. The episode is called Darmok.
Mm-hmm.
And in that episode, the crew of the Starship Enterprise, there's this alien race that the Federation has never been able to quite come to diplomatic terms with, and they're on this diplomatic mission to go and speak with these aliens. When they get close to them, however, Captain Picard gets forcibly teleported down to this planet along with the captain of the alien ship. And when they get down there, they have universal translators, but whenever he hears the other guy speak, it's not gibberish, but it means nothing. He hears the guy say, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. And Picard is like, I don't understand what that means. And the guy just keeps saying, like, Temba, his arms open.
Yeah.
And and then not only that, there's like a monster on this planet that they're like trying to get away from or to kill or whatever. And so the point of the episode is that they are able to understand each other's words, but not understand the meaning behind them. And then, I won't spoil the episode. It's a good episode, and I don't even really think a spoiler would spoil how good of an episode it is. But the point is that there is something more to the text than just the words that are being spoken, and that's the important thing. So if you do want there to be a hidden message and it is meant to be an obstacle, you can let the comprehend languages get part of it. Don't ever try not to make the players feel like they made no progress, because like you said, Jeff, they are spending a resource, and that is always something I'm hesitant to do, is to make a spent resource meaningless.
Right, yeah. It should only you should only ever reward a spent resource with nothing if the player is making a bad mistake. Like if
sure.
Like and in that case you're rewarding them with a failure that they can learn from,
Yeah. So, they might get part of the thing. Maybe now that they have additional information from knowing what some of the literal words mean, maybe they can go back to town and, find a scholar that can help them, get further towards the translation or something.
Right. Yeah. There's like a keyword in there somewhere that they could, if they speak it to an NPC, that NPC might go, oh, wait a minute,
Sure. Another little wrinkle that you can sort of exploit in order to still make this an obstacle is that you have to hear the language, and if you see the language, you have to be able to touch the surface on which it is written. Mm-hmm. Now, you could very well have the text be something they cannot physically touch. Either it's like written on the sky or on a surface that is just too far away for them to reach. If they're low level, it's on the ceiling and the ceiling is 30 feet high or something.
Right.
You could have it be that it is an illusion of text. It's like a silent image or something. And as such, when they go to touch it, they aren't able to. That very well could feel like another cop-out.
Yeah.
You kind of have to lay a lot of groundwork at the beginning to make it clear that it is an illusion. Don't be like, oh, you touched it? It's an illusion. It doesn't work. Make it clear that like this is an immaterial thing, and so when they go to touch it, it doesn't work. And then that can be another way to cling on to this obstacle that you wanted there to be. Mm-hmm. Really, though, I think that the bigger problem here, if there is a problem with this, is just that this is the kind of obstacle that doesn't necessarily work well in D&D. All the time in a story, you hear about someone, they don't understand the text, they don't understand the language, they don't know what school of magic something is, they don't know what a magic item does, and we'll get to identify in a second because that's actually different. But lack of knowledge is much easier to portray as an obstacle in a book when you, the writer, are able to decide what the characters do and what they don't do. When in D&D, players have a whole bunch of things at their disposal, and some of those disposal are no-brainers. It makes a lot of sense that they would just cast comprehend languages if they don't understand the language. It makes it so that it's not easy. You have to get out of the mindset of this being a suitable obstacle, because D&D, for whatever reason, the creators of D&D decided that the keys to those locks should be very easy to access. You could, in theory, make comprehend languages a higher level spell or require a material component or something, but
yeah,
again, you're still feeding into the mindset of a book and not the mindset of a game, where players are always going to do something that you didn't think of. Players are
yeah.
always going to find some way around that obstacle. So you can't have just one obstacle. We've talked in the past about you got to have like multiple ways to get around a problem. You've got to have multiple stages. If a single roll is going to bypass an obstacle, it wasn't a good obstacle. If a single spell is going to bypass an obstacle, it wasn't a good obstacle. So you'll do much better if you can get past that mindset. If comprehending the language is only one piece of the puzzle, awesome. You're going to do much better than if the whole adventure revolves around not knowing what this sign says or whatever.
Yeah, there's like a clock-like face wheel, with words on each end, and it's like translating those words, doesn't really mean anything. It's just a bunch of words, but like, what does it mean in reference to the wheel itself? Maybe they got to like turn some stones or something. Many layers to a puzzle.
Yeah,
means that one spell isn't going to do it.
Right.
There's one example I wanted to bring up. Mind Flayers, because actually Peace Joy Pancakes posted on our Discord a podcast called Encounter This.
Yes.
And it was part one of their, I guess, two-parter on Illithids. Like the Illithids have like a written language, kind of.
Okay.
It's I forget what it's called, but it's basically Mind Flayer Braille. That you need 4 tentacles to read. Like, okay. It's basically read with their tentacles.
Yeah.
And also has a bit of like psionic in it. Like, it's like
interesting.
Like the writing is itself psionic. So it's like, not only do you have to have 4 tentacles in order to physically read it, you also have to have some amount of psionic ability, and then also the understanding of it.
Sure.
And like people who attempt to read it are very likely to go mad.
Okay.
And like there's like there's like a type of like I think it was like maybe it was like a dwarf like some dwarf like faction that like have gotten to the point where they can gain some meaning from it, but not the entire meaning of it. Like they can read it without going mad, but they still don't quite understand it. So like it's got there's so many layers to it that it's like it's really hard to understand this like written language of the Illithid.
Sure.
So like yeah, like it's like okay, there's this so casting comprehend languages on this type of writing. You could have the player roll a saving throw and or if they fail it, they might get a madness or something.
Sure. I love that idea.
You might, it might be like the spell might not translate it, but it might tell them more about it as to be like, you feel like you need four, you need 2 more hands in order to read this or something.
Sure.
Like give them little hints as to what kind of creature might use this language or something like that. So you're still giving them information, but not necessarily telling them exactly what this thing says.
Yeah. Another little tip that having them make a save if they do translate it in order to actually comprehend what they're reading. I think that's a cool little like patch you can put over that over that hole. Another thing that I would say is of requiring if you come up with a magical reason why these sort of things wouldn't work, like it's not that you don't want the players to be able to translate it, but you want it to be difficult. You could require a casting ability score check. So like there's some sort of a resistance on the language or the source of the language or the magic item or whatever that resists being identified or comprehended. So you could apply some kind of check involved, even if it's not that you don't want the players to get it, you just want it to feel difficult. If you just want the players to feel like, there is something spooky going on here, and then if they do roll really low, then that's the reason. Oh, it's really weird. For some reason, it doesn't work. And then it's because, oh yeah, there was some sort of a magical protection that I just made up or something. One more thing about identification, like the identify spell. Identify is a little bit of a different beast because that tells you specific information. If you look at the identify spell, it gives you specific things. It tells you the properties and how to use it, tells you whether it requires attunement, tells you how many charges it has, if any, tells you what spells are affecting the item and what they are. If it's created by a spell, you learn what spell created. So there's a lot of information there. However, it doesn't tell you if it's cursed. If there is a non-magical object that is cursed, it's not going to tell you that.
Huh.
Also, there is another spell that, depending on whether it's in the SRD or not, it is either Magic Aura or Nystul's Magic Aura. It's a second level illusion spell, and that specifically bypasses Identify. So you can give a magic item a different aura so that it looks like a different magic item under an Identify spell. You can make a non-magical item appear to be a specific magic item under an Identify spell. You can also make a magic item seem to be a non-magical item using Nystul's Magic Aura. So if you don't want Identify to just tell the players everything about a magic item, there is ways within the rules that you can do that. Similarly, you could say, this is very old and ancient and powerful magic. This is very alien magic. And so Identify doesn't quite work. However, again, don't give them nothing. Give them like a vision of something that metaphorically is connected to what the magic item does. And then they have a new little puzzle, because now they're trying to figure out, okay, we saw a star open up and swallow a planet. What could that possibly mean about this bag that we just found? So there are ways around this. If you don't want to just give away, if you do still want this to be an obstacle, there are ways around it. However, it requires a little bit of forethought to not sound like a cop-out. And again, just try to get out of that mindset. Try to have obstacles be multi-layered, So, but it's a good question. I thought this would be a great one to discuss, because, I love talking about stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today. But we do still have our social media questions. Our last social media question was, have you ever heard or used a fantasy insult in a game?
I can't remember if I said anything, but I just remember the one used against my Warforged character.
That's the statue.
Damn statue.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned that Chris would call spellcasters hand wavers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I was expecting more responses to this, and we didn't really get a ton. We got a couple. The discourse on the Discord actually devolved into Shakespeare quotes. So there's really only a couple in there that actually are that. But over on Facebook, Nathan H says, yeah, a pox upon you, and variations of that are good, generic, fantasy feeling insults. Can also easily scale based on severity. A blight on your crops, a pox on your children, etc. Jake F says, they aren't really fantasy, but my current character uses the Yiddish terms pisher, macher, and buffalo. I hope I pronounced those correctly, on party and enemy alike. Pisher is a small fry or inconsequential person, an equivalent of a pissant in American English. Macher, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I think that's it. Macher is somebody who thinks they are a big shot or is full of themselves. And buffalo is usually just anyone obstructing or sometimes literally standing in the way. This is a small tangent, Jeff, but are you familiar with the sentence, buffalo, 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 buffalo?
I'm vaguely aware of that.
That is a grammatically correct sentence.
Right. Yeah.
What it's saying is that the type of bison that are likely to bully other bison are bullied by other bison. Sorry, bison specifically from the Buffalo area of New York.
So Yeah, buffalo, 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 buffalo.
Yeah, something like that. I think there were a couple extra buffaloes in there, but yeah. Sean M says, if it can be a pun, I've probably used it. Yeah, that works. Over on Reddit, Alistar the Minotaur says, elves cause cancer. And then he actually provided a YouTube link. I just saw it right before we started recording. I didn't have a chance to actually watch all of it, but I think that is a reference to something. Yeah. I'll put that in the show notes. And then over on Twitter, Karakarn says, I've used resh before. It's basically like the F word in English language, so it has a lot of different uses. I heard it in the Arcane Ascension series by Andrew Rowe and have used it ever since. And it's not fantasy, it's sci-fi, but I like the show Farscape, and they've got a whole slew of sci-fi swear words for that.
Yeah.
So like Frel is the F word, Dren is the S word. You know, various things like that.
And then you got your Battlestar Galactica with a frack.
Oh, is that what that's from?
I think so.
Oh, okay, I've heard that term, but I've never actually realized where it's from.
And then Firefly, but I think those are actually. I think they just use like a Mandarin.
Yeah. I think it's just Chinese swear words. Goram is one of them they use. And it's kind of funny. So over on the Discord, it's kind of funny. Like after we recorded the episode where we said this was the question, and between then and when that episode actually came out, I think it was Dustin and Stiltskin Koopa 84 started making a bunch of fantasy-based insults on the Discord, just like back and forth. And it was very weird timing-wise. But the thing is, none of the ones that they made are ones that I kind of wanted it to be ones that you actually encountered in a game rather than just whatever you can come up with. Because, we'd be sitting here forever if it was just like make up some fantasy insults.
Sure, yeah.
And it's kind of weird because like we only got a couple on the Discord that because like I said, the Discord, it kind of devolved into just Shakespeare quotes or something, but
right. Yeah. Shakespeare swears, I
guess. Yeah. So the couple that I saw that were not Shakespeare is Monty said, "Dear sir, you are without any doubt a rogue, a rascal, a villain, a thief, a scoundrel, and a mean, dirty, stinking, sniveling, sneaking, pimping, pocket picking, thrice double damned, no good son of a and I will bleep that out." Okay.
How much of it?
Just what if I bleeped out the whole, like each individual thing? We'll see. Listener, how it turned out.
Dear sir, you are without a doubt a...
There you go. Anyway, one more on Discord. Collins B said, if you consider Star Wars as sci-fi fantasy, which I do, my party has made great use of the swear Carabast from Rebels, along with classics like Bantha Fodder and Nerd Herder, which I think is supposed to be Nerf Herder.
Nerf Herder.
Yeah. My wife is a nerd herder. So I think that'll do it for our last social media question. Our next social media question is, have you ever played in a game where a PC turned out to be secretly working with the villain?
Ooh.
Have you ever encountered that in a game, Jeff?
I was once the doppelganger.
Yes. I mean, well, yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah. That's not what I meant when I asked the question. That definitely fits the letter of the question.
Yeah.
But I played in a game. What I was thinking of was I played in a game where one of the players turned out to be the big bad evil guy, and he had joined our party, went with us for a little while, and then we found out he was the bad guy and he fled. And then that player just made a new character and played with us for the rest of the thing. But like he had worked with the DM ahead of time. He even like showed up late to one of our sessions because his character wasn't supposed to be present during one of the things. So like the DM told him, "Oh, just don't, show up like halfway through the session or something."
Yeah. You got to show up late. So
and oh boy, that was a crazy reveal when it was finally revealed.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So I'm curious if any of our listeners have had situations like that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll do it for our questions for today. So before we close out, let's wind down. Let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have come before us, who have maybe given their lives so the world may be a better place, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre is a pretty short one. It was submitted by Mage Malteris, Mage via Reddit, I think is what that was. And their story goes as follows. He finished his mission and was supposed to die, but everyone loved the character, so he stuck around. The next session, we had a boss fight, and he died when the villain's NPC sidekick bit him.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's the whole story.
Oh, okay.
So let's raise a glass in memory of this unnamed character who survived and then died.
Clink.
All right, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. You can join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict. We're on Reddit. We're on our Interparty Discord. We're on Twitter @InPartyConflict. Check those out for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show unless they are Shakespeare. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. We have a few different tiers, which may be undergoing some changes in a couple of months. So anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is a YouTube channel where you can watch us play video games. You can also join us on Twitch at twitch.tv/FriendQuest Live for the Extra Life fundraising event.
Yes, and that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, it's on the 7th, November 7th.
Okay, so it's going to be the Saturday after this episode comes out.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be doing that, playing some games and raising money for children's hospitals.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And if you want to head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict, you can take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
Shaka, when the walls fell.